Welcome to my channel, guys. My name is James. Today we're going to be doing something that I haven't made in about a year on my channel. We're going to be making some delicious croquetas. Now, if you didn't know this, croquetas are one of the most consumed tapas in Spain. And you will see croquetas literally everywhere. I know I say this a lot, but it's true. You will see croquetas everywhere you go, at every tapas bar. Today we're going to be making a little bit of a different variation of croquettes than what we made last time. We made some chicken croquetas, and if you would like that recipe, I have it in the description down below. But today we're going to be making some mushroom croquettes, and this has to be one of the easier recipes as well to do. It's still a little bit of a process, but the end result is a very, very tasty and delicious croquette. And I'll also show you a few little helpful tips and tricks, as well as other means of saving it. So next time when you want to have some croquetas, well, you don't have to go through this process of doing everything from scratch again. So anyway, guys, before we get going, be sure to like the video down below, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And if you haven't visited my Twitch account, or if you haven't known that I'm also on Twitch, be sure to check out my Twitch account as well, since I'm doing live videos on Twitch. Anyway, let's get started. So first things first, when making the croquettes, this is going to be a very straightforward recipe. We're going to work on all the mise en place first. I'm going to take my onion and we're going to dice it. If you cut it into Bernoise, it's even better, but I'm gonna show you a little trick a little later on. So it's not necessary if you cut them super, super small. And I also made a video on how to cut onions if you want to check that out. It's on my channel. I can leave the link down below as well. Typically, you want to get ceps, which ceps have a lot of flavor. You can use trumpet mushrooms. You can use almost any mushroom you want, even chestnut mushrooms. But since I have so many button mushrooms in my fridge, they were on sale the other day at the grocery store, so I bought a lot of them. Well, I'm gonna use normal button mushrooms. And as you can tell, if they're a little dirty, that's not a problem. You can take a little bit of paper towel and just wipe them off, or you can also rinse them under cold water. You can take a bowl, fill it up with cold water, rinse the mushrooms super quick, take them out and dry them off. So now to cut the mushrooms, again, we want to dice these, or we want to cut these small. So I like to line them all up and cut them as I go, or cut as many as I can at once because it saves me time. If you're not as comfortable with using a knife, not to worry, go one by one. And either you can slice them as well, like I'm doing, and then we just want to slice them again, or chop them into smaller pieces. I'll tell you a little trick, which I'm showing you the harder way of doing it just to help you if you want to learn, but the other way of doing it is by putting them in the blender. You have to be a little careful though, because with a Thermomix, you can control how many pulses you want and the actual size. With a normal blender, you may not, depending on what you have, you may not be able to do this, and you can turn it into a puree. So I would use a blender if I had more than just a couple hundred grams to use, but today I'm gonna show you an easy way if you want to do it by hand. Now, this does look like a lot of mushrooms, but trust me, it's all gonna cook down because most of this is water. And at the end of it, I'll show you a little trick to make it even a smoother type of little croquette. So when you break them open, they should like ooze out. Now, once everything's cut, we're going to then weigh out our amount of flour that we're going to use, as well as the amount of butter. The flour and butter more or less should be the same amount, about 120 grams for 1 liter of milk that we're going to use today. Some recipes vary a little bit, and the mushrooms do contain a lot of water, but we do want to extract that moisture because this is not good for the recipe. It's going to make it too liquidy otherwise. So now to saute the mushrooms and to make the bechamel, what we're going to do is we're going to take a wide pot. The wider this is, the more cooking area or surface area it has to cook, the better, because this will cook and reduce faster. And we want to sweat the mushrooms, or we want to extract as much moisture out of them as we can. So first I'm going to add a little bit of our butter that we cut. I'm going to saute the onions first, just to sweat them off. And then I'm going to add the mushrooms in batches. If you're using a smaller pot than even what I am, I would suggest to make or to cook even in smaller batches with the mushrooms, because if you don't do this, then you're going to boil the mushrooms. And once you have added all the mushrooms to the pan, and you can tell that there's no more liquid or hardly any in the pan, I'm going to add the rest of the butter, melt it, and then I'm going to gradually add the flour in. You can take the mushrooms out and actually make, say, the roux separate, but since you already added all the butter in, we're just going to add it in at once, and we're going to cook it a little bit. Not too long, because you don't want color on this, but you do want to cook a little bit of the flour out. We're going to add the milk in little by little. You want a firm grip on the pot while you're doing this, and you want to slowly and gradually mix this in. This is a very important step, on low heat as well. And guys, a quick pro tip, never add cold milk to the roux to make the bechamel, never. You want to either add room temperature, like I'm adding today, or hot milk. So put it in a little pot and bring it up to a boil and then let it rest. And once you get to more or less the consistency that you see is bubbling away, taste it, and you can add a little more salt. I added a little salt in the beginning to season the mushrooms. However, with the amount of milk that you added, you will have to add more. Now I'm going to show you 2 tricks to making these the perfect croquettes. One, I'm going to take my hand blender and I'm going to blend the mixture. This will give a much nicer consistency, especially if you didn't cut everything small. And when you open the croquette or when you bite into it, it'll be much creamier. The second pro tip is to take a small portion of the mixture, put it on a plate, and put this either in the fridge or the freezer to check the consistency of it when we roll. This will help determine if you need to add more milk to the mixture, if it's not runny enough, or if it's too runny. Now I'm going to add a little bit of parsley to this. This is totally optional. At the end, after I take it off the heat and after I've seasoned, I'm going to mix the parsley in, and this will add a lot of flavor. If you haven't done this before, give it a try. And then I'm just going to take 1 or 2 trays, baking trays, or gastros as well, that you can then take a little bit of butter or oil the bottom, and then pour the batch or divide the batch up into 2 or more containers. The less there is in each container, the faster it's going to cool in the fridge and the faster you're going to work. So at first we're going to roll these into little croquettes by taking a spoon, and this will help us measure more or less the size the amount that you want to make them into. And if they are a little sticky, I'll show you a little trick. You're going to take a little bit of olive oil, put some olive oil on your hands, enough so they're slippery, and then you can easily roll the little croquettes. Now when you do this, you want to make sure that you have your flour already ready in a bowl or a pan, so that way you can drop the croquettes one at a time or several at a time into the flour so they don't stick to each other. You want to have everything ready to pane. So we have our flour, we have our egg wash, or our eggs that we beated, and then we also have some breadcrumbs. You can use panko, but normal breadcrumbs are actually what they typically use here instead of panko, although panko works really well. However, if you are using panko, grind them up a little bit, blitz them so they're a little finer, more like this. And then you also need like another tray or a plate, such as this, just to put the end product or the little croquettes on, and then we'll put them in the fridge. You're just going to take a little bit of flour. They're a little delicate because they're still at room temperature, more or less. Yeah, you want to brush off the excess flour, and you're just going to drop them into the egg. Now, a little trick is to keep at least one hand dry all the time. You can keep one hand dry or one hand wet, or keep both dry by using something with the egg wash, such as this, a little spider or something, a fork even, that'll help you just so you keep your hands dry. You just want to be careful if these aren't frozen, because they can leave indentations in them, and then at the end, well, they're not going to be perfectly round, but that doesn't really matter if you're just making them for family and friends. My suggestion would be that if you haven't done this before, go one by one. Don't take your time, don't rush, because like anything, the more practice you have at making these, the better you get. Also, when you start panning a lot, you'll get a lot of egg in with the breadcrumbs, and you'll start to develop these little things. Well, these little pieces you want to take out, because otherwise your croquettes are going to be a little clumpy, and you'll waste a lot of breadcrumbs. So just take another bowl, take a sieve or chinois of some sort, yes, and that's it, just pass it. Because this will, one, save you money, so you don't throw extra breadcrumbs out, and two, well, you don't have all these little bits on your croquettes. Now, after we penne all the croquettes, you have a few choices. Since this is for a decent sized batch, this will make 20 to 30 croquettes depending on how big you make them. You can either fry all of them off now, or you can take a portion of these and save these for later. So this will be a way of, whenever you want in the croquettes next time, they'll be in your freezer. You just take them out, defrost them, and then fry them. Now, another very important step is to put these into the freezer before we fry them. You want to firm them up. This will help prevent them leaking while you put them into the fryer. We're going to take our oil, and you can use olive oil, although it has a lower smoking point, but we do use it here to fry olive oil. We do use it. Or you can use sunflower oil. Sunflower oil is also very common here to fry. It's typically what they use in the restaurants. If you want, you can use canola oil, any oil that you would like to use for frying, any oil basically that's cheap. Now, we want to bring the temperature up to about 375 Fahrenheit. It can be a little hotter, but the trick is you want to fry hot and fast with these croquettes, because otherwise they're going to leak out and pop while they're in the oil, and you don't want that. Because, well, then you have a hollow croquette. They bleed out in the oil, and, well, it's nice when you have them on the tray and when you cut them open and they ooze out, but not in the oil because, well, you lost all your work. So anyway, you want to fry hot and fast. But once you have more or less a nice golden brown color, take them out and set them aside, and that's it. They're ready to serve. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this super delicious recipe for mushroom croquettes. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to ask. I'm on Twitch as well, so be sure to check out my Twitch account as well if you're on Twitch. And if you aren't, if you could go over and, well, make an account and do that, that would be fantastic for me. It would mean a lot to me if you did that. And if you have any questions or comments, then just ask me down below. I'm always eager to help. So until later, guys, take care, enjoy summer. Now's perfect weather to finally go to the beach and, well, sit down, have a beer, have some croquettes or some croquetas, and enjoy your weekend. Anyway, take care and have a great day.